I actually find comfort in discomfort, which might sound a bit strange, but I think it ties back to when I was 5 years old and I was actually put in an orphanage when I was 5 before I was adopted at 6. And you can imagine, like in an orphanage at 5 years old, it doesn't get more uncomfortable than that. But I had to
Wow.
quickly learn how to survive and what am I going to do. So I think at a very early stage, it was kind of built into me that, okay, discomfort actually helps you to grow and helps you to learn about yourself. I could give you so many examples where I've chosen the most uncomfortable situations, moving to countries that I didn't know anybody, starting a startup. So I think I lean into discomfort. I find that for me, discomfort is growth.
Imagine your startup journey isn't starting when you build your first company, but it's building at the age of 6. This is the story of Julio Orr, which was adopted very young age and had to move from Colombia all the way to Australia and rebuild his life from there with a caring family and so many challenges that immediately showed him that a problem is a problem only if you want to look at it as such. Otherwise, for Julio, it was always about new opportunities. This conversation goes deep into the resilience of a founder and what it means to be really facing challenges that go beyond the company itself. And I wish you a very insightful conversation and let me know what you think in the comments. All right, we are back at the Founders Bible. Today we are talking with Julio, back from Colombia. How's it going?
Hi, Ali. Very good. Thank you. It's great to join you on this podcast.
Thanks for being here. Well, it's always amazing when I have this transatlantic or transpacific, depending the point of view you have of the conversation. For me, it's tomorrow already. For you, it's still, I guess, yesterday, right? It's still Thursday afternoon, evening, something.
Yes.
Wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful. Well,
7:30
Julio,
in the evening. So yeah.
oh, nice. Yeah, yeah, we definitely have like 13 hours difference. Wonderful. Let me start breaking the ice. As I told you, the usual question that nobody escapes from here at the Founder Bible is why the heck are you a founder? Start telling us a little bit your story. And from there, we're gonna go deep. We're gonna deep dive into your journey, which I've been mentioned by the people that introduced me to you. It's quite amazing, quite interesting. So eager to hear you.
Yeah, this is such a great question. And I think it's also a question that I've been kind of on a journey the last couple of years. I've been traveling back to South America where I was born in Colombia. So I've been learning about myself. And I think in some part it helped me to answer this question. So it's good that you asked me this today. I think one is that I've always found myself to be a very curious person. I like to build things, I like to create things. And especially when you create something that helps other people, helps businesses, it's very rewarding. But the other part, which is I actually find comfort in discomfort, which might sound a bit strange, but I think it ties back to when I was 5 years old and I was actually put in an orphanage when I was 5 before I was adopted at 6. And you can imagine, like in an orphanage at 5 years old, it doesn't get more uncomfortable than that. But I had
Wow.
to quickly learn like how to survive and, okay, what is the situation? What am I going to do? And I adapted and I was able to make friends and sort of survive there and have a good experience. So I think at a very early stage it was kind of built into me that, okay, discomfort actually helps you to grow and helps you to learn about yourself. So I think from that point on throughout my life, I could give you so many examples where I've chosen the most uncomfortable situations, moving to countries that I didn't know anybody, starting a startup. So I think that kind of helps to answer the why am I a founder? I think I lean into discomfort. I find that for me, discomfort is growth. So it's a long
Wow.
answer, but I think that kind of
Yeah.
resonated a bit with me.
That's so crazy. I knew about this, and I was gonna ask you about it at some point because you now say this with a smile as a person that understood everything that went through, but of course it must not have been easy at all. And I don't know if you mind bringing us a little bit like a typical question that I know that I ask here. It's what have been the walls that you have hit and smashed with your face, and what did you like? What did you learn from there? I guess you started right immediately to learning and to get this kind of different walls
Yeah.
on you.
Yes, exactly. And, it's not something that I'd planned at 5 years old, but, when you look back, you don't get to choose the cards that you're dealt, right? But, when I look back, I feel thankful in some way. I mean, I was very lucky to have a fantastic family in Australia. I was lucky to get adopted. And also what came with that, I was lucky to build resilience at a young age. And so that was my first, like you mentioned, like hitting a wall. And, as we go through life, other things happen in our lives that we have to manage. And I felt that I've been able to just build that more and more throughout life. So going from, in school, challenges there, to, whether it's, losing a parent or, all these things at different scales of difficultness, but everything, builds your resilience. So that one particular moment when I was 5 was that beginning. And I think sometimes we try to avoid discomfort, but I think I was lucky at an early age was that I don't need to try to avoid discomfort. Discomfort can also be seen as an opportunity to grow and learn.
I'm just amazed by the fact that you keep saying a word that I have seen like over and over among the founders that literally survive the worst challenges in their life and they still do it with a smile on their face, which is opportunity. And if I go back to my past, to be honest, it hasn't been like that for me for so many years. I actually remember the very first company at 19 that I built, that I was constantly trying to prove it wrong and to make it fail. And I still remember like a huge fight with my co-founder saying, Ale, stop it. I mean, if you continue saying like that, it's gonna happen like that, right? So
I see.
for you, what has been like, you had to learn it from such a young age, but how did it ingrained in you the fact that a challenge might actually be an opportunity?
Yeah, I think that one thing was the challenge is an opportunity. And I think also it's having some like healthy optimism. Because I think from being in an orphanage at 5 and no one adopts 6-year olds. And so I think from then on I realized that somehow I was already lucky early in my life. I kind of almost won a lottery. And so sometimes that always helped me to put things into perspective, because when something challenging came on, I always had that voice in the back of my mind was that most of the time everything's going to be okay. You just have to make sure that you take a step back, get some clarity, try to think of the best approach to deal with that. So one part was knowing that challenging moments was opportunity for growth, but I think the other one was sort of developing this kind of healthy optimism, which because I think when you have healthy optimism, it actually helps you to have that kind of right mindset and start to see maybe other kind of strategies. So I do say healthy optimism because you have to be realistic as well. But I think that does help me and has helped me to kind of persevere through things, to kind of find. Oh, and I think founders tend to have a bit of that. Is like you always have to solve a problem. Like just because there's a problem, it's not the end of it, right? You then got to think of one solution and then another solution. So yeah, I think those two things of challenges equal growth and optimism, has always helped me to keep moving and seeing things clearly.
I I told you before starting this conversation, like how the Founders Bible actually started. It was my quest to interview or to ask other founders about mental health. It's quite a big topic among us.
Mm.
Very few people talk about it. Very few people talk about it publicly, especially. So I'm curious, was there ever a period or moments in your life where that has been like a big challenge? I mean, I guess all of these challenges, all of these difficulties, then developing the mindset that you're talking about in between, was there like uncertainty about it, or were you always like, no, I know something is going to get better, something is going to get better, and then at some point you just made it through it?
Yeah, so I think that I feel like I have the tools that kind of help me, but it doesn't mean that it's not incredibly difficult. Um, it's like I think for me, and I think everyone has grown up in different ways and experienced different things, traumas. And I think that always makes your nervous system a lot more kind of sensitive and alert. And I guess my trauma was, being given up for adoption and been in an orphanage and I do notice that my nervous system, I think when I'm stressed, I can get have a anxiety, and I think sometimes it can be unhealthy where it can, yeah, like it can be very difficult to really function when it gets to a certain level. And I think because I'm aware of that, I then try to both from a mental perspective, like try to make sure that I'm in the right mindset, kind of thinking the right way, and also doing things around me, like exercising, meditation. So but I've always been afraid that, okay, sometimes anxiety can actually lead to depression. And, in some moments where I've been so anxious that it started to sort of spiral a little bit, and I could see that happening, I think those moments have been really frightening. But I don't feel like I've ever gotten to that stage, but I felt close to those stages.
Hmm.
And that really, really is frightening. And so sometimes when, if you're in the startup scenario, that has been causes of stress, and that's been really difficult. But I think those things that I mentioned before, I feel like I know in theory, I know all the tools and I have the experience. And even though all that's there, it doesn't actually mean that I do it perfectly. Like I feel like it can be difficult. But I feel like that overall that it does kind of, I think I've been able to avoid, maybe getting into worse situations by having these things that I've learned along the way and from when I was little.
I've spent the last year asking top founders for their secret sauce. And the honest answer, there isn't just one. Yet, the internet keeps selling us a one recipe fits all. At Whole Grain Wisdom, we're building the tools to help you craft your own recipe so that your mind, body, and energy are fully aligned and you can perform under pressure without burning out. Our recipe is very simple. This podcast shares raw stories from founders who really had the courage to jump off the hamster wheel and rebuild their operating system without hustle. The newsletter is where I go deeper into the science and protocols behind re engineering flow and performance. And ultimately, we are running founders only retreats around the world to create the space for real transformation. And to be honest, that's where really the magic happens. Whole grain wisdom is where science meets ancient wisdom. It's where we become quantum founders, the entrepreneurs led by inner energy and flow and not finite willpower. If this resonates with you, then join us at wholegrainwisdom.com. Okay, now back to the show. I always love to go kind of like do a sort of like mind travel and go back to specific situations that you may have felt in that way, because I always had, the feeling that when I listened to this kind of podcasts in the past and people speaking about it, I was always okay. Yes, I understand the logic of it, but
Mm,
then when it happens in the middle, how did you get out from there? Because that's really where like the key practical thing shows up. And I also believe
yeah,
that's really where other people that may be feeling in these situations can really benefit of. It's like, oh, I now recall this pattern. Like we are kind of like pattern recognition brains and machines. So
mm,
when we can go back there and relive the experience and then know exactly how to get out from there next time, that's really helpful. Would you
yeah.
mind kind of giving us whatever example that you really felt like very close? How did you get out from there?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it definitely is around self-awareness, um, and being able to not wait till, it gets too much, picking up signals. And I guess you know yourself. For me, some of the signals for me is that um, when things are going well, I do all the things that are good for me. Like I exercise every day, meditate every day, eat very well. As soon as like I face something that's really overwhelming, my first is probably is my eating. Start to eat badly, maybe start to skip some exercise. Maybe and your sleep patterns change. So your body's telling you, and so it's just been about reading your body and being aware. And I think sometimes as being a founder, you feel like you need to work more, you need to push harder. That's what's going to keep getting you results. But in actual fact, sometimes what's going to help more is just listen to your body and focus on that, because your company is not going to grow any faster than you are going to grow. So as soon as you start to sort of fall apart, then the company could follow the same trajectory. So I think that's something that for myself, I feel like I'm strong at. Like I am quite self-aware and I pick those signals. And as soon as that happens, I tell my friend, I'm like, I'm starting to see these things happen again. And I start to think about strategies. Like, I'm gonna force myself to go to the gym tomorrow, even though I don't want to. Or whatever it might be, whatever habits you need to put back on track to keep your mind and body back on track. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's definitely easier said than done, but it's just a bit of discipline and self-awareness.
I loved when you said that when you're not at your best, then your company isn't either. How how did you convince yourself of this? Because if I look at my first companies, I remember this constant pressure of just doing more, even though I clearly knew from a pragmatic reality that that was not going to move the needle, but I still felt
Mm.
so guilty to let go. How how do you talk to yourself? Like how do you convince your own, kind of ego that is taking the wheel on the drive and is like, no, 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 do more, do more. Like how do you go back to rationalize the situation?
Mm. I Yeah, I definitely you definitely end up doing a lot of talking to yourself. And I think that the way I tend to do it is I think when I make myself do things that I know I should do, but I'm just not willing to do it. So, for example, exercising. So, one of the times where I was having a lot of challenges, one of my first tech startups, um, it was a lot of challenges. We were struggling to find product market fit, running out of the runway, and but what co-founder and I were like, okay, like we need to like exercise, and we would exercise together. And in those moments, I actually had clarity. It's like your mind actually becomes a lot clearer because a lot of those chemicals, a lot of those stress things come out. And so that was good, positive reinforcement that, it's important to step away, that you're not going to make progress just because you're still working on the business. So I think those things always gave me positive reinforcement to keep doing it. But it's true because sometimes if I can fall into that trap where I just so focus, it's almost like a tunnel vision, and you're like, I need to do this, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and it's just never ending. And but then after a while, I realized that I'm going back into that kind of mentality, and then I just force myself, to take time and to do something that I want to do or something that's healthy. And then in those moments is when I feel more clear. Then I go back to doing the work, and you're kind of able to work a bit better and a bit more clearly. But then it happens again. So either you've got to like really kind of have those healthy habits every day, or you've got to know when you're reaching that limit and you've got to go and take a break or take some reflection or do something for your mind and body. So it's always a battle. Like, no matter how many years you've been doing it, like you always fall into similar traps.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So let me go a little bit on the routine part of being a founder. You talked a little bit already about having your meditation, your sport, and so on. Like, what is the thing? What are the things that today you know for certain that make you feel at your best, and you know this is a must in your schedule of the day?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it's I think one thing, because now I work, more nomadic, so sometimes that can be different challenges because you're moving from one place to another. So what I found was that, okay, sometimes the Airbnb that I was staying in, it didn't have that kind of environment that brought the best out of me. Like, it was a bit dark and cold, and so I had to change my routine. So I found that, for example, for me, was that as soon as I woke up, I had to leave the house. I had to have that kind of walk out, breathe some air, maybe have some interaction with people. And that just kind of gave you a bit of a good positive start. Or it could be like going straight to the gym. But I knew that, at least for me, I needed to get out of the house the minute, I was up and ready to go. And that actually has been working really well for me, particularly where, if I move from one place to another, the environments are different. So that's one thing that I've done that has really helped. I think in terms of routine, I kind of give myself goals that I need to do that day. So, do 10 minutes of meditation, which I suck at, but I put it in my, things that I need to do. Um, I do the gym, and I also try to do 10,000 steps, because obviously the gym is great for fitness, but I found that walking for me, it really helps me to think and process, and um, sort of stress release as well. So I try to do that as much as I can. And so I think with those things in my routine, I tend to be pretty good. The other part is the eating part. This one sort of up and down, but can't everything can't be perfect. I think you can always. I think you have to be fair with yourself, and don't be so tough on yourself. I think sometimes there are days where you don't achieve anything of those that you wanted to, but I don't sort of put pressure on myself. I just sort of like, okay, that was today. Tomorrow's another day, and I will do my exercise and whatever routine that I'm doing.
I always compare the founders to high professional athletes, but with a big difference that, when you're an athlete and you want to win the Olympics, you're going to get into a club or a federation, and they're going to put you in a team, and they're going to give you, the trainer, the masseur, the physiotherapy, nutritionist, all of these people that are literally
Mm,
for you there to make you win. Founders don't have this. I always thought as a founder that I had to make it myself by alone. And the more that I developed as a founder alone, and the more that I actually got worse, it really got better when I was closer to other people, that I was building these systems for myself. And then you later on even understand that the great founders, the great entrepreneurs out there, they all have their own personal teams. So what is it for you right now, like your support system? It doesn't need to be like a person specifically, but even a skill or something that you like to surround yourself with, so that when stuff gets really hard, you know that you can count on all of the system. Describe us a little bit. What is it for you?
yeah, it's a really good. I mean, it's a really good analogy, because yeah, I do agree, and it's surprising like that. Founders, there isn't that. So yeah, I think if you're building something like that, I'm 100% in. I think for me, I'm in Bogota, and I'm not even in a place where there's other founders that I know. So doing another startup now, that was one of the first things that I was thought about is that I need to have my network a little bit. So I reached out to people that I knew that are doing startups at the moment, and also at the same level as me, like they're just sort of starting out. So one is in New York, one is in Spain, and so for me that was the first part. Is just having a network of other people that we can just kind of share and um, share ideas and share challenges, a bit of a support network. So I did my own support network. And then the second thing was figuring out what would be the best way for me to stay on track. So, because if you're on your own, you can kind of get in your own thoughts and so forth. So I actually thought like, because this is not like, when I first did my first startup, I didn't think in this way. So this time when I'm building another startup, I thought about all the things that I wish telling myself all the things that I wish I could tell myself in the beginning. And that was okay. Yes, one part is building the business, but that part you can sort of figure out, and the other part's the mind. Half the battle's your mind when you're building a startup. So I was like, okay, this time I'm going to get both right. I'm already prepared with the business side of things. I need to make sure my mind is prepared. So not waiting to like it's too late or facing like crisis. And so I really believe that resilience is not like in the moment. It's not the reacting to the challenge. It's actually everything you do from the beginning. It's the preparedness, the building the habits. So I actually this time round I spent quite a bit of time to kind of reflect on myself. What in the past, what have I known where I fell in the past? Where have I known like so it's almost kind of giving my own little playbook for myself so I can do the right habits to make sure that it's less likely that I'll encounter those, or even if I do, I will be prepared mentally for them. So, but I definitely would love other things because it's only so much you can do on your own, and if you're only in your own head, So I think there's power with sharing minds. But that's for me what I've kind of learned and taken on this time.
Amazing. How how do you actually do this part of the reflection? I'm curious because I'm now like since almost 1 year I journal a lot. And I used to think that was a
Mm.
girly thing, but it's actually one of the most powerful tools I ever found in my life. What is it for you that like how the process works for you to say, okay, before I used to think like that, I used to be in that mindset, and now I'm working this and this and this and preparing for that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard so many people talk about journaling, and for me, I've tried it and it didn't. I don't know. Maybe I just it's maybe like meditation. Like they didn't come naturally to me. But what I found is that I need to be in a place that's away from the work.
Hmm.
I need to be like by the beach or like I need to be somewhere that I feel happy. Um, and then not to have anything around you, like no distractions. And then I just think like I know, and I think because I've been thinking since I was little, I'm like, what's going on, and I have to sort of analyze things and reflect, and so I think that's just the way I learned from 5 years old. So I dissect things in my mind, and things are kind of feel like I know something's not right. I know it's not fitting. I know something's wrong. I know I need to find a solution. So I need to find my space where I can go into my thoughts and then I can solve it. And that's just the way that I always have done it, and it works for me. It's not always easy. Like it's not like I will sit down for an hour and after an hour it's like phew, done. It might take me days. It might take me weeks to finally come to that kind of clarity. But yeah, that works for me. But the other thing is I'm also investigating other ways. I think that's one thing as a founder is that you always got to like try to like try things, explore things. And one interesting thing I found that when I was sort of thinking, preparing for your podcast, it actually gave me a chance to reflect because I was thinking about scenarios. So that was actually a very very useful for me to like like, kind of get some encouragement, because I was thinking about all the things that I'd done and achieved, and then suddenly my problem that I have now didn't seem so big. I actually sort of found some clarity for that. So it's interesting. We can find this in many ways, but it is never by keeping our head in the work,
Yeah,
trying to like push harder and harder. That kind of seems to go the other way.
totally agree. Yeah, it's crazy because since I started this podcast and I'm not outsourcing anything of the post production yet, I'm really
Mm,
like taking the time to rewatch every single episode and edit it and so on. And I actually found it to be so great to have the time to go back and re-listen stuff. There's been
mm,
so many years that I was so into the hustle culture mood that I don't know, I wouldn't even re-listen to a pitch that I've done, I don't know, a week prior.
mm,
I would be just like, ah, yeah, let's reshare on LinkedIn. That's something that I did. Yes, check, check, check. But
yeah.
I wasn't really paying attention to what was happening. And
Mm,
if we go back at the athletes' performance example, they spend hours and hours
mm,
rewatching how they played a certain move so that next time they can project it to do it better. So this
yes.
time that you're talking about, it's so fundamental. But of course, you will never have time for this, even in not even the material time, but also like the mental space to just take the time
Yes.
to go back and do the job. I love this. Let me close up with one last thing. Connecting back to the support system, you talk to me like what you have today. If you now could have unlimited budget, unlimited access to the best talented people or any other resource on the planet, and you have 5 seats to fill in within your support system, like your kind of personal board of executive performance, who or what would you put in?
It's a good question. I definitely would put in like a high level coach. I think to the athlete coaches, like 100%. Obviously, those very high level ones are very, very expensive, but I would look for like one of those, people who are kind of in the field, I guess, I mean, there's a lot of people sort of thinking of like a specific one, but I would pick someone that I could have like as a coach, business coach.
Mhm.
I think also definitely like a sports coach and a nutritionist coach. Um, Sometimes I've thought about it, but it can be expensive to have a nutritionist and a fitness coach. Um, those would be two. I think another one would be a coach that helps on like coaches that help around like speaking in public and speaking in like the high level communication, like
Mhm.
that kind of, like, I think that can be very helpful, because those skills, like, as you build those, they just serve you forever in every situation. And I mean like the very high level, like how do you take it from here to the next level, like the storytelling, the and actually one of the reasons why actually for me podcast is not natural, public speaking is not natural. It's one of like the things I kind of fear the most, but again I put myself in discomfort, because I think we learning from you, learning from and also growing. So I think that one. So that's four, and I think a fifth one is a difficult one. Hmm, I have four. The fifth
No
one.
worries. It can be good. It can be good for.
Do you have a fifth one? What's your fifth one? If you.
Well, to be honest, for me, there's a key part of knowing why you're doing what you're doing, and this goes beyond the concept
Mm,
of purpose. I've spent so many years as a founder, kind of doing the workshops of start with why, figure out your work and business vision and purpose and so on. The reality is that for me, it all didn't make it never felt complete until I understood
Mm,
why I was here as a human being in this life. And to this,
mm,
I mean, of course, you can open many other topics. I love to talk about spirituality. For me, it's been actually in Colombia, where you're staying now and you're originally from. For me, that's been like the gate opening of spiritual world.
mm,
And I love to take it from a scientific perspective, but at the same time,
mm.
understanding that there is something more than just your physical body.
Mm.
For me, it's really
Yes.
important. And of course, I could not be living today without a guiding on this matter, because it's at the end of the day you understand it's really the source of everything, that you everything else you're doing is based on that. If you don't know why you're
Yeah.
here, then you're always a little bit
Mm,
confused on why things happen in your life, right?
yeah. That's so interesting. And where did you develop this? Like, did you take you a long time to find someone to help you on that journey, or how did you even get? Because
Well,
I find
my
spirituality very
story,
interesting.
yeah, my story, it's quite bubbly, let's say, when it comes to this journey. The reality, like the long story short, is that as a founder, I had so many problems with mental health and panic attacks that I had
Mm,
to start breathing exercises and meditation. It was not an option for me, it was the choice to be
mm,
surviving. And then from there,
mm,
first I went to the east, I went into Buddhism, and then slowly I made my way back to the far west, let's say, so Colombia and Mesoamerica. And from there, I connected with the shamanic community, the shamanic culture. And the funny thing is that from the east and from the west, and even in the center, like if you talk about the African mystic culture, they all say the same thing. And then you go back into religion, and then you understand that before the dogmatic learned experiences of today, they used to say exactly the same thing. So the dots
mm,
connected, and that's why I'm actually building Holger Wisdom, which is my mission to bridge ancient wisdom and science together so that we finally
mm.
make sense of everything.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's something that I haven't explored more enough of. I find it very interesting. Yeah, wish I had more time to talk to you about that, but maybe another time. But
Another
yeah, I
podcast,
do
yes.
think, yeah, I do think that that's something that maybe some people only go towards when they feel like, oh, I don't have any other route to go. And then they find from that that there's this kind of enlightenment and something that, so like, how do the other people who maybe not at that point to go and explore that can more available to them? Um,
Yeah,
because we shouldn't have to be in a state of like, that's not working, that's not working, I need to find something to find that. Um, yeah, I think I'm going to do some research into that.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Julio, it's been a great conversation. Thanks so much for coming here and sharing your story, and especially to be transparent and like open about it. I'm sure many more people
Mm.
can relate to the challenges. And I wish you all the best. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, it's a pleasure. And yeah, we'll meet next time I'm in Hong Kong or
Yes.
Singapore,
Bye
wherever.
bye.
Bye bye.